Welcome back, and joining me for a closer look at what's played out on the market scene today is Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities. Thank you so much for your time, Faheema. Lots of company news that's out, and of course one that was in major focus was in Sasol as it hosted its Capital Markets Day. So it really gave us its turnaround plans in terms of stabilizing its current operations as it navigates the volatile macroeconomic environment, while also giving us a glimpse of Sasol of the future. We did see that share climbing over 10%. I don't know where it ended, but did investors get a clear path of how sustainable growth can be realistically achieved by the company?
Good evening, Zinati. Thanks for having me. Yes, I think it was a good day today for Sasol on the back of that Capital Markets Day. It seemed to give investors more confidence in the stock. It's, of course, been under a lot of pressure over the past few years. And the main point from there was the fact that they will be cutting back on their emission reduction spend by almost 18 billion rand. And that will, of course, then enable it to reduce some of its debt further. So the priority for now, I think, is just in terms of ensuring there's sustainability in that business going forward, and that it's in a healthy position debt-wise. So the government has allowed it to deviate from the emission measurements that it initially had subjected it to, which means that it's no longer as stringent. But in the long term, I think on the positive note, they are committing to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by about 30% by 2030. So I think there were positive developments from the day, and investors seem to have a better idea of the growth and the turnaround plans going forward.
What about Impala? Because we did see that share price rocketing almost 12% at some point. No sense update, though. What's going on there?
Yes, I think PGM stocks were just a lot higher today, perhaps on the back of the calls for supply cuts, given the losses that a lot of these companies have been making in the past year, and the pressure that the local PGM stocks and mines have been under. I think that supply cuts will be a positive for the PGM price going forward. So that was perhaps seen as a positive by the market.
Well, another positive came from Renogen. They came out with an announcement right before market close, and it's 16:52, saying that, coming out with a cautionary announcement that ASPI has an intention to acquire all of Renogen's shares. We did see that stock up. When I looked at it, it was actually up almost 40%, but I actually read an article that at some point it shot up about 50%. Of course, we know that investors have experienced a lot of pain in that stock. So I'm sure this is a welcome surprise.
Yes, definitely. It was a great day today for Renogen and for investors. I think it actually came as a big relief to investors, given that just on Monday, Renogen put out its results, and there were concerns about funding and whether the company had enough funding to continue on a going concern basis. So I think it definitely came out at the right time today, because it's put investors' concerns to rest. And it looks like this is a U.S. company making this offer. It's actually listed on the NASDAQ, and they're offering their shares in exchange for Renogen shares. So it looks like a promising offer.
All right. So, well, let's take a look at some of the other company news that came out. Alex Forbes released an annual trading statement. For continuing operations, the company expects its headline earnings per share to rise by as much as 15%, share popping over 3%. Has this company just been on a one-way trip to growth?
Yeah, pretty good trading statement. So it looks like the operating income growth strong, that was supported, they said, by higher assets under management and high client retention. And I think it was interesting to see that they've also said that higher than expected two-pot claim volumes also contributed to that top line. So yeah, still seems to be pretty well positioned for growth going forward.
All right. Well, going back to another company where investors have experienced a lot of pain is Newton, previously Transaction Capital. I'm actually not sure how many people still have that company in their radar. Of course, it is now a thinner company. It released its interim results today, revenue declining 4%. They did narrow their loss, though, for continuing operations on the bottom line. stock plunging about 11% at some point, though. What do you make of how the company performed amid the restructuring?
Yeah, so I see the market didn't really like the performance. It was down about 16%. And like you said, revenue declined by 4%, EBITDA also down 17%. So I think it's still stabilizing after that spin-off. It still has a long way to go to restructure and get to where it needs to be. What was notable, though, was in South Africa, there was actually reduced collections because of deteriorating consumer payment behavior, and that's actually forced them to write down some of their debtors' books there. And on the international side, the business was also quite flat. So it looks like this one's facing quite a bit of headwinds going forward.
And actually, just before we go to your stock pick, Faheema, the rand really, really strong today. 17 rand 94, I think, was the figure as we went on air. And I'm wondering if that has to do with the budget tomorrow.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because the economic news that I've been seeing about the budget is that we're expected to see revisions come through on economic growth and revenue forecasts. And perhaps that's why we're seeing some weakness in the financials today. But I think on the rand side, perhaps there's just positive sentiment coming from the trip whereby President Ramaphosa is going to be meeting President Trump tomorrow, and that's getting the market a bit excited. And also the recovery in commodities because of global growth improvements on the back of these tariff negotiations is perhaps also having a positive impact.
All right. Well, let us go to your stock pick for today. Faheema, what are you hanging your hat on?
So my stock pick is Naspers. I think it's looking quite attractive on a forward PE of about 11.1 times, considering pretty strong growth expectations in the next few years of at least 32%. Tencent, which is a holding of Naspers via Prosus, released its 1Q results, and that was quite promising. We saw strong growth coming from gaming and also from ad revenue, and we're expecting to see further gains come from Tencent in the next year. Also, that acquisition of Just Eat Takeaways is expected to help it expand its presence in Europe and to really grow profits there. So we are seeing upside of at least 20% on this one.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights on what has moved investors' money today, Faheema. That was Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities.